Welcome everybody to October's CE Shorts, Haunted Stacks, and I am here today with Amber Potts, who is the West Regional Librarian, and we are going to share some haunted stories from Boyle County Public Library, McLean County Public Library, and one from Willard Public Library in Indiana. So
McLean County.
McLean, not McLean.
McLean.
Oh,
Got to
you can
stand up
tell
for my
him.
Western Kentucky. Can't, you know,
You can tell I'm not from here.
yeah.
And this is Amber. Amber, do you want to introduce yourself or say hello?
Hi, everyone. I am, like you said, I'm the West Region regional consultant, and I am really excited to be participating in the first CE shorts that we're doing.
Great. Well, thank you. Okay, so today we're gonna share some ghost stories from these libraries, and we're gonna talk a little bit about some haunted libraries that are not in Kentucky and where these stories might come from. So Amber she's going to start us off. She has an awesome story about the Henderson. Is it right? Is that right, Amber? The Henderson
Yeah,
ghost?
at in Henderson County Public Library, there has been just, I guess, full disclosure, I worked for Henderson County Public Library for several years before I came to work for KDLA. And there has always been, staff has always had different, strange experiences when working there. It primarily takes the place of hearing disembodied footsteps,
Ooh,
hearing people calling staff's name when no one else is around. Um, until 2020, when the building went under construction, it was mostly centered around the Carnegie part of the building, because the way that the Henderson Library is set up, there's the oldest part of the building, which was built in 1904. That's the Carnegie part of the building. Then there's a middle
uh-huh.
part of the building that was built in the late 70s, early 80s. And then the newest part of the building opened to the public in late 2020. But once the construction happened for the new part of the building and they were renovating the middle part of the building, something about that completely unlocked, where people started hearing things all over the building, not just in that Carnegie part of the building. And the story that I have to tell actually took place in that middle part of the building. It was a few months after the library had reopened to the public after the renovations, and a former library employee who had been part of the renovation process had planned on stopping by to see the completed renovation and expansion. But she got held up in traffic and was not going to make it to the library before the library closed. This was during COVID, so we had reduced hours. But she messaged me and she said, is there any way that even if I'm not there until, a little after the library closes, is there any way that we can still get the tour? And I had no problem showing her through. I was the interim director at that time. And I said, I've got some paperwork and stuff I need to, work on anyway. So I'll be more than happy. So she shows up probably about 45 minutes after the library is closed, and I take her through and show her the different parts of the building. And the renovated children's department has a children's learning garden that is just off of the um, children's programming area. And we were standing there looking out at the children's reading area, which put our backs to the corridor that runs up between the children's department, the teen department, and the makerspace. And suddenly I start hearing footsteps coming from the end of the building where the staff entrance is. And I didn't really think anything about it because I figured that someone forgot their phone or their purse or something, and so they ran back in real quick to pick it up. And so her head whips around real quick and she, to see who's coming up. So she heard the footsteps too. And then the footsteps passed the area where we were standing, and there was no one there. And so, I mean, both of us were just kind of staring at each other for a second with our eyes, really wide, because it was like, okay, you heard that too. You reacted to the footsteps at the same time I did. We both just heard that, right? And so it was so creepy. And then later that day, I still couldn't quite let myself believe that we had heard footsteps coming up the that corridor without anybody being there. So I like double checked the security cameras. I double checked to make sure there wasn't someone in the building. Um, Nothing. And so that was my one experience that I had, even though I had a lot of over the years, people calling my name, hearing footsteps in other places when no one's there. But that was one of the only times that someone else was there and experienced the same thing that I did.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
it was creepy, but it was fun. And
It must have been
they've
pretty
since
validating though. Like, oh,
yes.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I know I'm not crazy. Like when she turned around and reacted to it, because otherwise I would have just thought, I was hyper aware or something. They've since I've left Henderson's library, they've had a ghost team come in and do a paranormal investigation. And one of my friends who still works there was telling me that when they were in the Carnegie part of the building in what's known as the Wathen room, it's a small meeting room with a few local history displays. They were talking to the ghost, and they got up to this one display, and it was setting off all their meters. Everything was kind of going crazy, and then it just stopped. And the person who was leading the investigation said, "Well, I guess they left." And right after she said that, out in the rotunda area, just outside of the meeting room, a bell that they had set up as a communication tool with the ghost went ding. So,
Oh gosh.
so they have all kinds of fun things going on there.
And was that in the original Carnegie part, or was that also in the new renovated, you said?
No, this was in the original Carnegie part of the
In the
building, but
Carnegie
it was
part.
in the
Okay.
renovated part of the building, in the children's department, that we heard the footsteps running up the hall.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. That's a great story. Do any of the staff currently report anything? Is it still happening over there, you think?
Yes, I double checked with a couple people, and they still hear it's still mostly hearing footsteps when people
Oh,
aren't there, or hearing
right.
um like they may be at the desk and they'll hear someone go, "Hey," and then there's
Oh,
no one else around, or they'll hear someone call their names.
oh,
And
wow.
they'll turn and be like, "What?" And everyone will be, "What do you mean?" you know
Just staring.
so
Oh
yeah,
gosh. Oh,
it's
wow.
still going on.
Okay. Well, we had a couple people send in stories, haunted stack stories from their library. So I will read one that Katie Followell from Boyle County sent in. And then since you know about Frank a little bit better, Amber, do you want to take on McLean's?
I will be more than happy to.
Awesome. Okay. So Katie Followell sent in from their library, and I'm going to read exactly what she sent. That way I'm representing them properly. So Katie says, they have a um, Ralph, a janitor that passed away. She says, our team hosted a ghost hunt here in 2023 before I worked here with the public, and we had an interesting experience. We had the public split into two teams, one downstairs and one upstairs. What's interesting is that the exact second that we had a book fall off the shelf on the fifth floor, the patrons' K2 meters and EMF detectors went off on the third floor, and they were able to track the spike for like a few feet. It was neat. So that's a great story. So it sounds like the Boyle County Library has Ralph the janitor in their library.
And say, yeah, it's great when they kind of have an idea of who it might be, or at
Yes.
least, you know, otherwise
No,
just kind of being some random person that maybe just really loved the library, so they want to spend the afterlife there. Um,
right. Now the Henderson ghost, they don't have a name there, right?
um,
He or
we,
she or they.
it's kind of a joke that it's Miss Susan Tolles who was the first
Oh,
librarian there.
ah,
We don't
okay.
actually have any reason to suspect other than she retired at 90.
Oh my goodness.
She was the librarian there for almost 50 years. She started in her 40s. So, I mean,
Wow.
someone who didn't even retire until their 90s surely would have, immediately want to come back and have an influence on
Right.
everything. But we don't know for
Absolutely.
sure. But the staff does refer to the ghost as Miss Sue, even though we
Gotcha.
don't really know for sure that that's who it is.
Okay. Well, it's good to have a name, I think, for
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So, yeah. Do you want to tell us about Frank?
Sure. So Frank is the ghost at McLean County Public Library in Livermore, and their library is in an old-fashioned storefront,
Oh,
and In fact, if you go to McLean County's Wikipedia page, there's a picture of the library on there if you want to kind of be able to look and visualize, as you're thinking about the story. But I believe you said it was Amy, the library director, is the one who responded and kind of like,
Yes.
Sarah, I'll read it so, it's represented properly. Once upon a time, part of the library was used as apartments. The story goes that a guy got stabbed across the river in Ireland. He swam across the river, crawled in the window, and died here. Ever since we have been here, which side note, they've been there probably about 12, 13 years now, we have had Frank sightings. He moves pictures in the gallery, has appeared as mist several times that we have captured on our security cameras, walks the hallway upstairs, and comes down our wooden steps, all which is quite audible. We have had hunters in the building numerous times, and they have captured many voices, light flashes, thermal images, and actually had Frank roll a beach ball towards them. They always want to come back for more. I named him Frank. No basis for the name, but I did ask him if he would mind being called Frank, and he said it was okay by him.
That's great. And I guess they are quite familiar with Frank. He is quite active in their library from what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Yes, they've had a lot of different people have experience with him. I had both Amy, who's the director, and then Angie, who's their youth services librarian. I've had both of them at different times tell me about some of the things that they've experienced
Oh
um,
wow.
with
Now do
the
we
ghost. I
oh
haven't
you said
encountered him when I've been there, like for
okay.
board meetings or anything,
Right.
um, but several people have told me about things that they've experienced there.
Oh wow. And that building never was it wasn't originally a library, right? Like a Carnegie. You said it was storefronts.
Yeah, it wasn't a library until they moved into the library.
Oh wow.
It's just and like some of those old downtown storefronts that you see. Um, so
That's
it's
so cool. I'll have to check that out. Try and get a picture of that. I can't imagine swimming across the river after getting stabbed, though. And for anyone who's not from around here, I did clarify, island is the name of a town. It's not actually an island.
Yes,
So it's
Island
the name of a town.
is the name of
Yeah.
the town. Just a little bit past you go over the giant blue bridge, and then just a little bit past that, you will be an island.
Awesome. Great. Well, so there is one more that we wanted to mention, but it's actually in Indiana. So the Williard, I bet it's Williard Public
It's
Library in
Willard.
Evansville. Oh, it is Willard. Okay.
It's Willard Public
Public.
Library.
Okay. And is Evansville, is that right across the border?
Yeah, it's right across the border from Henderson, which is where I'm based out of.
Okay.
Um,
Wow. So that whole area over there is just kind of spooky.
I guess we like our ghosts. We like our libraries with a little bit of, ghost activity just to kind of keep it
Okay.
interesting.
It's just a little bit of flavor over there.
Yeah,
But
just
Willard Public Library has apparently one of the most famous public library ghosts who's been in their building since 1937. And they have reported cold spots, their file boxes moving around as if they're being thrown. So not even nudging, just throwing. Typing where there are no longer any typewriters, and then a strong smell of perfume. And the Willard Public Library is unique because they actually have ghost cams. So you can log into their website. And if we reference any website links or journal article links, we'll put those in the comments under the YouTube video so that you can go and click on those and find them yourself. So the Willard Public Library Ghost Cam link is below this video and in the comments area, and you can just click on that and you can um, watch the ghost cam and see if you can see their famous public library ghost wandering around. So that's pretty cool, I think.
yeah, it's a beautiful, old library, and yeah, just it definitely has the feel of somewhere that could, if there's going to be a library ghost, it would be, there in
It's gonna be
Willard.
there. I think I saw that it's like an old mansion kind of thing. Is that their building?
It was built as a public library
Oh,
back in like the 1800, 18,
oh my goodness.
and Mr. Willard, I'm sorry, I can't, Willard, no, Willard was his first name. Anyway, Willard Library, he founded this, and it is maintained, even though it's a public library, it's not part of the larger Evansville-Vanderburgh public library system. So it's
Okay,
still, it's open to the public, but it's not like part of the government like a lot of public libraries are.
gotcha. Okay. Is it a like a lending library?
It is. It's a lending library.
Okay.
They have a huge genealogy collection. That's kind of
Oh,
their, focus. They have a huge genealogy and local history collection. But they also do have like a children's section, which that's where some of the activity is taking place, is in that children's area. Um,
interesting.
and so yeah, so if you're a big, local history genealogy buff, then, you know, Willard Library would be an interesting place to stop by and see what kind of resources they might have for your um, uh, genealogy projects.
Yeah, that's a great reference. Okay, so in my research, we found there are the American Libraries magazine has about 10 years apart from each other published two separate stories about haunted libraries, which I found interesting. So, because I thought, wow, maybe they have someone on staff who's really into it, but these were not only two separate stories, they were written by two separate people. So the first one is from it was originally published in 1997 and it was republished in 2015. And it's called Phantoms Among the Folios, A Guide to Haunted Libraries. And again, that is from the American Libraries magazine. And so they updated their information. And they say that there are two types of haunted libraries or buildings in general. And one is that there's a library with a reputation. So something from like a past tragedy or a murder or a curse. So the Boyle County Library had someone who passed away, just kind of a death. And then, of course, Frank, right, who was stabbed and just happened to die in the building.
Right,
So those would be libraries with reputations, I think. And then they also say that there are libraries where ghost stories just stem from the spirit of the place. So these are things that happen that are unexplainable events that are attributed to a spirit being in the building. Um, so maybe you don't, you know, stuff gets moved around and you're like, oh, that's, just our resident ghost. So the story comes from the unexplainable rather than a known event. So
right.
I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah. Do you have the notes on the Peoria, Illinois library?
I do. And that's,
Okay.
um, would you like for me to read the haunted tale?
Yeah, I thought
Uh,
that was pretty interesting because, Illinois itself has such old cities and
let's see. The Peoria, Illinois Public Library had a curse placed on it in 1847 by a woman who owned the land where the old library once was. Three library directors died in 1915 from a runaway streetcar. In 1921, um, there was someone died from a heart attack at a library board meeting, and in 1924, somebody uh, self-deleted themselves using arsenic. They had all kinds of activity in the old part of the library, but in 2010, stripped the library down and demolished the remainder of the original building, stopping all activity. So I guess that must have satisfied the curse for the building to just be torn down.
I think that's insane. I'm not sure that I would be willing to be library director after the first two incidences,
Oh
but
no, no, I would be absolutely like that should be at the very least that should like be a disclosure in whenever they're hiring someone. Oh
in
yeah,
the
by the
job
way, we've
description.
yeah, we've had several people die over the past years. The directors just have died in the building. So yeah, I
Right.
wouldn't want to do that either.
No, and that haunted tale again is in the Phantoms Among the Folios guide, and it mentions that the library, the directors, I think, were the final straw, but overall, the library since 1847, after the curse, had experienced some unexplained phenomena that was kind of scary to the staff who worked there. But I guess once they demolished the original building, everything was fine. So I'd like to see a before and after picture of the building. I sort of
Yeah.
wonder, Amber, how many of these buildings that have all this unexplained spookiness are original Carnegie buildings.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a
and
good
I
question.
only, yeah, I only wonder because I'm from a little town in Michigan called Sparta, and that they claim that that building is also haunted, and that is an original Carnegie library still, and it's still there. So,
That is
and
we may have to do some research into that and see
yes,
what the correlation between haunted libraries and Carnegie libraries,
yes, for
might be.
sure. Yeah, when we can get a list of Carnegie libraries and see, just contact people and say, "Are you haunted?" I don't know how they feel about that, but so okay, so there are multiple haunted library stories from around the world. The New York Public Library, of course. I mean, if there's going to be a library that's haunted, why not that one, right? So the New
I
York
mean, it
Public
was in
Libraries.
Ghostbusters, so it must be true.
Was it really? Was that the library?
Yeah, at the beginning of the movie,
Oh.
when the librarian, is causing that was at the New York Public Library.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, now I have to watch that scene again and see what I can see. But they say that library is haunted by multiple ghosts. So I don't know if it's what were the terms that we were using? I don't know if it's a library with a reputation or if they were just the spirit of the place, but I don't know. Maybe
I
it's
don't think me either. I
maybe
guess it
people are
depends on
dying.
who, maybe a little of column A and a little of column B. Like
Yeah,
maybe they're able to
maybe.
tie some to like specific, instances and a few others where it's like it's just we don't know.
Sure. Well, if you're from the New York Public Library and you happen to be listening to this CE Shorts, feel free to chime in the comments and let us know what you got going on over there. But the Senate House Library at the University of London started being haunted once they actually acquired the Harry Price collection of magical literature. So I thought perhaps it's actually the collection that is haunted because that library had no activity until they got the Harry Price collection. I thought that was really interesting. That was the
As-
first. What was that?
I was just going to say, yeah, I love the idea of haunted objects.
Ah.
Um, so it might maybe, yeah, maybe it is the actual collection that is haunted or has something attached to it. The
Hmm.
Kentucky Historical Society has something in their building that is supposed to be haunted. Like
Really?
that,
Is it like it's an
I didn't get
item?
a chance to find, yeah, an item. When we did the tour about this time last year, one of the times that we were walking from place to place, just out of curiosity, I asked the staff member that was showing us around, is there anything, since you have a lot of historical objects, is there anything here that people, claimed were cursed or haunted? And she said, yes, we do have one object that's supposed to be cursed. But then
Oh.
we got interrupted and I didn't get to, find out which object it was, or maybe
No.
they didn't want me to know, so I wouldn't go and be like trying to play with the ghost or something. I don't
Right.
know. So,
That's so funny. Well, now I have to know. We'll have to figure out what it is and
mhm.
let everyone or keep it a secret. I don't know. But then, so the Marsh's Library in Dublin, Ireland, was founded in the 18th century. This is the library that Bram Stoker used to visit as a young man, which is pretty cool. And then they say that library is haunted by the Archbishop Marsh, Narcissus Marsh. So I can't even imagine, just trying to get your stuff done and you've got the Archbishop standing over you. But um,
I wonder how much influence that might have had on, him writing Dracula and
oh,
everything,
yeah.
having a haunted library.
Ooh, yeah, that would be a great place to write if you're writing, horror, anything like that. And then our last one, the State Library in Victoria, Australia, has had such activity, paranormal activity in their library that they have security guards refuse to work their night shifts, which I thought was interesting. So I don't think I would work a night shift either. I'd have to be days only. But
Mm. I
all
don't
of
know.
those, what was that?
I was going to say, I don't know. I think it would probably depend on what the activity was. You know,
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I don't mind stuff being moved, but I take offense at stuff being thrown. That's usually when I step out.
yeah. Like, yep, nope, I'm out.
Yep. So those stories from those libraries around the world can actually be found in a Mental Floss article of haunted libraries that, again, we will post underneath the comments. And that, I don't know if anyone's heard of Mental Floss, but they're fun. They have lots of just random facts and trivias, which, I thrive on. So if you want to read those stories, that was actually just published in 2024, so last year. So if you want to read that article, you can just go ahead and, oh, can you still hear me?
I can still hear
Oh,
you.
good. Okay, thank you. I thought I clicked out of the Zoom meeting, but if you want to read that, you can go into the comments. So yeah, so we have a couple more things. So I wanted to talk about the libraries that offer ghost hunting equipment. So All over the US, apparently ghost hunting equipment is a very popular item to have in a library of things. And we have some libraries here in Kentucky that offer ghost hunting equipment. So I wanted to point out some libraries from all over that offer this. So the Clark County, Ohio Public Library actually offers ghost hunting backpacks that patrons can check out and take into the community. And they have a spirit box that scans radio frequencies, electromagnetic field meters, which are EMF meters. And then they also have recorders that capture voice phenomena, electronic voice phenomena. So the kits cost the library about $250 each. Just in case you were considering offering these in your library, you might want to consider the cost being around 250, but they have never not had a hold. And the Clark County, Ohio Public Library reports that patrons will get library cards for their library just to check out their ghost hunting kits, which I thought was pretty cool.
So yeah, that's a fantastic way to get your numbers up. And, you never know. I mean, anything that will hook that because you go in for the ghost hunting kit and then you just never know what else they might, discover. That could make,
Yeah,
someone a lifelong library user just because they were able to, see if their house was haunted first.
for sure. And if the community is that interested in ghost hunting, equipment, that would be a great collection to really boost in your library to um, you know, it's like automatic reader's advisory right there. Oh, you're checking out our ghost hunting backpack. Come check out, our movies and books we have.
Right.
So, and then the Wilsonville, Oregon Public Library just added a ghost hunting kit to its library of things, and the library says that it's almost never on the shelf. So these seem to be pretty popular items. And then I wanted to mention the Coventry, Rhode Island Library because I was just in Rhode Island. They offer a ghost hunting kit that has a thermometer, which I thought was neat, and a geophone that measures vibrations and seismic activity. But they did not have immediate popularity for their kit. So what they did was they ran a video showing staff using it in their own library. And when they were doing this commercial video for their kits, they actually discovered activity near the video game section. So they decided to call their ghost Barry. So
I
who
wonder what,
knows?
apparently a ghost with a video game interest. So,
Yeah,
you know,
that's the section I would haunt is the video game
oh
section.
yeah, me too. Just kind of go through and, just try to mess with people there. But yeah, I would haunt the video game section.
Definitely. So who knows? You might decide to put out a commercial. I know the Boyle County Library sometimes does events where they do stuff in their library. So maybe you might be trying to advertise your kits and discover your own library ghost. But so Amber, why do you think that libraries are so haunted? Like you never hear about like the Walmart, the haunted Walmart.
Well,
But
I
why
mean,
why
yeah, that's
libraries?
true. I think that, it's partly, part of that, one, they're connected to like stories and things like that. But then libraries tend to be older. We were talking a minute ago about how, several of these stories that we found, if they weren't Carnegie libraries, they still were, several, 100 years old or even
Hmm.
older. Also tend to have that, the old buildings, they tend to have things like, wooden staircases and wooden floors that, creak and pop as you walk across them. They tend to not always be the best lit, have nice spooky corners
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I think
and
they offer a gravitas that like Walmart wouldn't have. Like if
yeah,
I'm a ghost, I'm not haunting Walmart.
yeah. I mean, if nothing else, I mean, there's already enough going on at Walmart that I think that a ghost wouldn't get that much attention, to be perfectly honest.
That's true.
They would just kind of shrug and be like, well, it is Walmart.
Right, definitely.
But yeah, I think that
Yes.
that's probably some of it, and then also you get this, libraries are a quiet space and there's not a whole lot of those, so you're more likely to hear, you know, different sounds and, and whether you, hear it and you think that, oh, I just heard someone saying my name and someone did say my name. It was a patron over in the stacks trying to get my attention, but
Mhm.
they'd already moved on by the time I um
Right.
so you hear noises that you might not necessarily hear at, a busier, newer location because just it's so quiet at libraries. And
Yes, they're definitely the perfect environment for, they're like fertile ground for stories like this to come out of.
yeah. And then they have, like I'll just kind of, you know, people that are into libraries love libraries. They have these, really strong ties, and the memory ties and things like that, which I mean, that in and of itself kind of lends itself to the storytelling and the legends and the things like that. You know, people who, read and things like that, sometimes might be a little more, imaginative, so kind of sets that little fertile ground
Mhm.
um for legends and stories to kind of take root at the library.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. And then, of course, when you have an older building, you do have things like, the floors are going to creak. Um, if your building is old enough, it probably didn't have electricity when it was first. It may have
Oh,
been like gas lights
right.
at first. And so you're having to deal with, you know, electricity and things like that that had to be retrofitted to the building. Um, so you may have these actual things that have an actual like explanation, but once you kind of add it into this, atmosphere and, the architecture and everything else like that, then, it kind of becomes, your mind doesn't immediately go to, oh, well, it's because this floor is, 125 years old and it's been really dry. So it's probably the wood's drying out and that's why it's creaking and popping. You think ghost.
Definitely, yes. Yes, I would agree. That's what I would think anyway, but
Me too.
well, friends, I hope you enjoyed our library ghost stories from around Kentucky. So we're gonna leave our like links and everything down below, and you can check those out. But if you have a story that you want to share or anything you'd like to add, feel free to add it in the comments, so that everyone can join in on the fun and hear about that also. So, but Amber, thank you for joining me for
Well,
this
thank you.
month.
I want to say thank you for asking me to.
Yes, it's tons of you have so much information about Western Kentucky. So
So yeah,
lots of stories.
say a
Yeah,
font of information.
a font of ghost
Of ghost
information.
information. I was always the
Perfect.
creepy kid that, when other kids were playing, I was sitting, on the side reading the ghost stories and things like that. So I guess it just kind of really took root.
Well, who knew it would come in so handy today for this very moment?
You never knew.
You never knew. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, and just let us know if you have any questions, and we will see you next month.